Making things happen, internal power systems, and ritual. All right, today in 60 Skills, we're going to discuss the difference between using an internal power system and ritual to make things happen. So first, let's talk a little bit about what the differences are between the two. Internal power systems largely use the body, intention, and energy to generate more stuff, or energy, if you will, to make things happen. Examples of this include Qigong, pranayama, and other yogic type systems that use the body again to generate energy. This in turn can then be applied to make something happen. On a very basic level, you can look at things like improving your run times, or lifting heavier weights, or engaging in things like hands-on healing. At a more refined level, you can use the internal power that you've generated to project your mind into other realms of existence in order to gain access to information. These are basic examples of internal power systems. The way these work is as you do more and more of these, you become more sensitive to the energies that are used, and your body gets better at producing them. The advantage to an internal power system is it is largely bereft of outside influences, things like egregores that we've talked about previously in the 60 Skills series. So you retain more of your free will when you use an internal power system. Now, you also have ritual systems. What are examples of ritual systems? Well, things like Shingon Buddhism, a lot of activities in, say, deity fusion using Tibetan Buddhism, things like the Golden Dawn system. Ritual systems largely depend upon stored power in the egregores, or spirit forms, that surround them. What these things do is, through a series of prior determined actions, they give you access to this stored energy. It's a lot like using a series of keys to open a series of locks. In turn, the intelligences, or egregores, involved with that ritual system do a lot of the work for you, generally by turning off progressively over time limitations within your body that interfere with your ability to generate a given energy. With a lot of work, you can actually turn a ritual system into an internal power system. I first learned about this when interviewing John Michael Greer several years ago, where he explained that the rituals in the Golden Dawn system are actually designed to be used to sensitize a practitioner to a given energy, to teach them how to generate that energy, so that they can eventually do it on their own without the use of the ritual. Now, the downside to using ritual is, again, the intelligence, or egregore, associated with that ritual. Those intelligences are gradually going to cause a practitioner's thought process and actions to track along the lines of whatever that intelligence does. Now, again, it also comes with the advantage that the intelligence is doing work for you, which generally makes things easier to happen, particularly in the beginning stages. And as you unlock more and more of these locks, so to speak, through an increased immersion into that ritual, you become more powerful. But again, with the limitation that the intelligence associated with that ritual is going to guide you. Additionally, the battery effect, or the stored energy effect associated with the ritual, operates by taking a little bit of energy and intention from a practitioner and putting it into that stored battery. So because of this, things like, say, the Latin Mass in Western Catholicism is an incredibly powerful energetic battery in egregore off of which you can draw. But there are other limitations associated with ritual magic. Not everyone can use every ritual magic system. Sometimes you need initiations, sometimes you have to have certain empowerments, or it's simply not accessible to you. So while a sensitive practitioner of any kind can feel the energy coming off a Latin Mass, unless you are declared a priest in an apostolic line of succession, you can't actually control or run the ritual yourself. Again, with things like Shingon Buddhism, for example, you generally have to be declared a Shingon priest before you gain the ability to work with the ritual directly. Additionally, not all egregores are compatible with one another. So, for example, if you work a lot with Egyptian deities, most people tend to take on, over time, a dislike of Christianity. Christianity and the Egyptian ritual methods are largely not compatible for this reason. So this can create other issues. Now, which is better to use? Well, largely it depends upon what you're doing. If you want to have complete control over what you're doing and you want to avoid influence in general, then internal power methods are the way to go. That said, because they require development of the body, in particular the facial tissue and ligament and tendons to run increasingly large amounts of energy, this takes a large amount of time. You simply have to grow into it, and this doesn't happen very quickly. Also, a lot of the methods behind internal power production are not particularly well understood and tend to be rather inefficient. This is a disadvantage to that. The primary advantage being you have largely complete control over what you're doing without outside influence. Rituals, on the other hand, generally allow a practitioner access to large amounts of energy fairly quickly, with the disadvantage that if the body isn't properly prepared beforehand, this can create a series of problems. Because again, they work by having the entity turn off all of these internal safeties that then allow you to do something. But by turning off these internal safeties relatively quickly, this opens the door to different kinds of energies, or injuries, So I'll give you an example of this. Many years ago, I was training with one of my teachers in a wilderness area. We went out and we made contact with an elemental lord of air. That elemental lord of air showed me some of the Qigong or yogic flying techniques. The next thing I know, I'm leaping 3.5 feet into the air, bouncing off puddles of water, and doing some pretty amazing things involving light body skill. I came back to my body, thanked the entity, sent it home. My body, and my spine in particular, felt like it had been hit by a hammer for about 3 weeks afterwards. Why? I weigh 110 kilos. A 110 kilo man who's not in particularly good shape shouldn't be leaping like that. Normally, the body will prevent me from doing this so I don't hurt myself. But the entity in question, again, defeated those safeties, so it allowed me to do something that my body really wasn't well prepared for at the time. Now, in addition to this, you have hybrid systems. So things like Xingyi or 5-element fist. You've got your fire fist, you've got your water fist, your earth fist, your wood fist, your metal fist, so on and so forth. There is a ritual aspect to what's going on because these are very old systems. People have been doing this for a very long time, which means stored batteries of energy and egregores have grown up around it. It is also an internal power system because you're training the physical body. All of those movements with the ligaments and tendons and weights and so on and so forth build the body. So the systems that are more effective on a physical level generally combine both ritual with body training. And again, none of this is good or bad. You just have to keep in mind that when you're dealing with something that has an intelligence or egregore associated with it, as long as your goals and the goals of that thing are in alignment, things tend to work out. The problems come when they don't. So I've met a number of people over the years that practiced Golden Dawn work for over a decade, and then just woke up one morning and realized where that was taking them in terms of their personal life wasn't where they wanted to go, so they just quit, without having gotten to the point to learn how to generate the forces without the aid of the egregore or the entity involved. Now, both internal power and ritual systems are excellent ways of getting things done. That said, You have to be very cognizant of the opportunity cost associated with internal power systems, because anything that takes you hours a day to learn how to do comes at the expense of other things. Whereas on the other hand, again with ritual systems, you've got the issue of influence. Maybe the entities involved are taking you someplace that, personally, you don't really want to go. So these are the two main ways yogic, meditative, and magical practice get things done, through either an internal power method, a ritual method, or a combination of the two. So if you like the topic of today's discussion, please hit the subscribe button. And if you'd like to learn more about the 60 Skills curriculum, check out the details in the text box below the video. Otherwise, as per usual, train hard and be well.